Yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Marvelous Chats. My name is Finto. I'm joined in this video with Hoffman and Zaberwolf, and we're going to be reviewing Marvel's newest movie in the MCU, Thor Love and Thunder. Guys, tell us, what did you think of this film?
Oh man, this film very controversial in how people are receiving it. I gotta say, off the bat, I am irrational about liking Thor movies. I love Thor. It can be a terrible movie. I'll have tons of gripes. Yeah, we'll talk about throughout this video. 9 out of 10. Love this movie.
Mjolnir's right
Loved it.
behind you, sir. We know you're a Thor fan, and your graphic, your icon for the podcast is you with a Thor helmet on. So we
Yes.
know you're a fan. We know. Alex,
I would say that I'm a pretty good fan of Thor as well. I love the fact that like Hoffman is a Thor fan, I'm a Hulk fan, and those two tend to battle it out every now and then. And I gotta say that although the movie was fun, I really think that I still criticized it, or I still saw the flaws, even though I was trying to shut off my brain and enjoy the movie.
yeah,
I think I'd have to give it like maybe like a 7,
okay,
because I think that there's a lot that could have been done, and I know that there was moments where the scenes that should have been extended, like that should have been the thing.
mm-hmm.
Some of the things that should have been shorter. Um, and I know that Taika Waititi was planning on making this like a 4-hour movie, which I think would have been way too long, but at the same time would have explained a lot of things that went on in this
Yeah.
movie, and there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Absolutely. So when I walked out of the cinema, I had like 8 out of 10 in my head. Really enjoyed it. I usually, like me and my lady, when we're walking to the car, we'll kind of talk about how we feel about it and stuff like that. And like I was happy. It was like the comedy was there was a lot of it, but it didn't annoy me. And like I loved Christian Bale. I loved Thor. I loved the story. I loved like that in the end of the film it's his actual real daughter is playing love, and I'm like, this is cool. It's really cool to see. The more I kind of sit back and think about it, maybe it gets a little worse, and I do need to go and see it again. But when I'm kind of like trying to overanalyze it in my head and I'm watching other people's reviews of it, like I'm kind of seeing the faults more. But I feel like I probably watched it in the perfect mindset. I kind of just went in. I'm like, this is going to be a comedy. It's going to be funny. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to eat my food. I'm going to have a laugh. And I did. I was burst out, like I was laughing out loud on plenty of occasions watching the film. When I think about the movie, like afterwards, I do see what a lot of people are saying. Christian Bale's character was incredible. His acting was through the roof, but we didn't get to see a lot of him. And the bits that we did see, a lot of it seemed kind of irrelevant. Like it's like this dude's name is literally God Butcher, and we didn't see him kill any gods. Like, I was kind of like, what's going on
Yeah,
here?
Thor killed more gods than he did in this
Yeah.
movie, bro.
Like seriously, bro. Like I was just like, what's going on here? Like I'm like, as cool as the scenes that we got, like when he went to New Asgard and he's disappearing into the shadows and stuff, I was like, this is amazing. I love this. And like all of his close up shots of his face, he was creepy looking, and his teeth were like really put me on edge and all. I was like, this guy is menacing. Like he's terrifying to look at. But I don't know. Like I just feel like so much was missing from the film, and now only this week, Christian Bale and I think Natalie Portman as well have both said in interviews that they had both shot some incredible scenes that were not in the final cut of the movie. So they confirmed what everybody had been saying. Like, a lot of people are saying that this film is just very poorly edited, and it just seems to be a bit all over the place. And the story structure of the film just seems to be so bland. It's just like
Yeah.
we're going from one step to the next, and then that's it. Like, there was no kind of mystery. There was nothing that kind of threw you off track. Like the thing, and again, didn't say it at the very start of the video, but spoilers obviously for anybody who hasn't seen the film yet. But you know, I was kind of shocked when they killed Jane at the end. That was kind of the thing that only really kind of shocked me. But I didn't read the source material, so I didn't know the story of Mighty Thor and how she went to Valhalla. And in the comic books, she ends up returning as like a Valkyrie later on in the storyline. So I'm like, maybe she's not dead forever. But I kind of felt like the second after credit scene to me was a bit of a waste, because I was like, I don't really need to see her going to Valhalla because I know she's going there. It's obvious that she's going there. It kind of felt like a bit of a wasted opportunity. I was kind of talking about this in the car on the way home, and I was like, and I've felt this way about the last couple of movies. I'm like, they're really wasting the opportunities for the after credit scenes because like so many people talk about the after credits, and the after credit scenes usually keep everybody hyped, and it's like, oh my god, I can't believe this is coming next. You know, like where's it going? Like what does it mean? Whereas like we had Bruce Campbell. Yes, it was funny, but it was kind of like a wasted opportunity. And now this, it's like, yeah, it was cool to see Idris Elba again, welcoming her to Valhalla and all, but I'm kind of like, you could have had something cool to connect this into Ant-Man or whatever's next, Like, imagine, as I was just thinking off the top of my head, but imagine, like, the final shot, we get, like, a pan back to New Asgard, like, where the Jane statue is, and a TVA door just opens up in the middle of the field, like, and then it just cuts to black. And it's like, oh my god, Loki might be coming back or something, like, it's like there's opportunity to kind of get people speculating and get people talking about what's coming next, and they're just not taking that. And they, that's used to be why people sat in their seats and waited till the very end of the movie because they wanted that. Now I kind of feel like we're not getting it. So it's tough for me, like, because I see a lot of people talk about how bad this movie is, and I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's a good movie, but I just think that. I think maybe Marvel gave Taika Waititi a little too much breathing room, and he went a little too over the board with it. Like, the Korg narration got a bit over the top for me. I didn't need to hear it towards the end. There was just comedy every 2 minutes where, a lot of the time there didn't need to be. As much as I do like Taika, and he did an amazing job with Ragnarok, and I think he did a great job with this movie as well, I kind of don't want to see him directing another Thor movie. I kind of want somebody else to take it up. I kind of want maybe Thor to go back to being a little serious. What do you guys think?
I really think that with Taika Waititi, it was like, he got his 2 free throws and he sunk one and he missed the other. So, yeah. Like he thought he could do the same thing to get that next net, but it just didn't work. And it really shows because he really tried to push on his humor. And there were moments where like the goats, like they weren't too much, as much like I was thinking it was going to be nuts. Even Katie thought it was going to be nuts. And luckily it only like panned out every now and then. You got that little tidbit here, tidbit there, and it wasn't just like them screaming all the time, which would have really driven me insane.
Yeah, that didn't really annoy me either. Though I thought they were funny, and I think like Taika himself actually recorded those screams, which kind of made me laugh a bit more, just because I know I'm picturing Taika in like a recording studio somewhere screaming into a mic and turning it into goat screams and stuff, Or the bit where they drove right into the moon and it looked like they were going to do like a Star Wars landing on a planet, and it's just like splat. That made me laugh so much, dude. Like, there was a lot of comedy in it, and I really do want to see it again. Actually, I have to say one thing. So when we got to the theater, the queues for the food was like really long, and it was like 9 o'clock, and the movie, the way they say the movie starts at 9, but there's like, ads, and then there's like 10 minutes of trailers, and the movie doesn't usually start till about half, usually. And I was just like, it was like 10 past, quarter past, 20 past. I was like, I'm missing the trailers now, and I was fucking furious. We got our food and we went to sit in, and when we walked into the screen, the movie had already started, and I turned around to my girlfriend and I probably gave her the worst look that I've ever seen. I was so furious. So when I walked in, I saw Gore being picked up by the god by the throat. So what I wanted to ask you guys, because I haven't seen it a second time, did I miss much at the start?
Yeah, you kind of missed his whole daughter dying. Like his daughter dies of thirst in the very beginning of the movie, and you really see him go through he's not asking for the gods to save him, he's asking for the gods to save his daughter. And that's like his real driving force in the beginning of that, why he the Necroblade probably calls out to him, because he's so spiteful and he hates the gods so much now. But I think that beginning kind of speaks to how weird, like, now I'll start criticizing the movie, even though I still love it. The tone of this movie, I could never, it was all over the place. There was a lot of humor in it. But like right from that very beginning, here is this, really incredibly sad scene, really heavy scene with them killing off a kid, which like just doesn't really happen in Marvel movies ever. And then all of a sudden it's like a big joke, right? Like the god's a joke. Like he's kind of a joke. He looks,
goofy.
he looks goofy. And that was kind of like the whole movie, where it's, it's what is this movie trying to be? Because there's jokes every second in this movie. It's like a little too self-aware of itself. It gets so into its like soap opera like humor sometimes, and then we're dealing with stage 4 cancer. It
Yeah.
has screaming goats and all this stuff and all this humor all over the place, and then all of a sudden we're dealing with themes of like inequality and wealth. The gods have so much while all these like people are dying and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, where's the balance? Like, it's so incredibly on a polar opposite of what it's trying to be. And it's kind of like how Ragnarok was, but he, like Alex said, he nailed in Ragnarok. Ragnarok was really a movie about like colonialism and like myths about colonialism wrapped around this like amazing epic, adventure movie with jokes in it. But like it wasn't just, it felt better, but it's just, we're dealing with like stage 4 cancer, and they're like, all right, kids, let's kill Gore.
Yeah, that's
like,
so weird.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Do you know what? Go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
One of the things about that movie is that like I agree. Like there was too much comedy to really, hit that underlying fact that like people are dying right now. Like.
And like the way that they did Natalie
dying.
Portman's face as well, like she looked very sick, like it was very kind of real,
Yeah.
And then they're again back to cracking jokes. So yeah, it was just kind of crazy. One part that I thought was kind of weird as well was, the way like when he goes to where, I don't know if it's a planet or whatever, where all the gods are hiding, where they're having the big orgy. I'd like, you hear Zeus talking about the Necro Sword, and they're like not leaving this place. They're like, we're hiding, we're fearing this sword, this can kill us. We don't want anything to do with it. You go deal with the God Butcher if you want. We're gonna chill here and just have an orgy. And then it's like when they go and fight him, like Jane destroys the sword with ease. And I'm kind of like, what was the big deal? Like, why wouldn't like Zeus and Hercules and all these people just go and dive on Gore, just take the sword? It didn't really make any sense, because the way Zeus was talking about it, I was like, Jesus Christ, if this sword touches any of them, and this sword I presume is absolutely indestructible, can't be destroyed at all, and then within 2 minutes of the final battle it turned to dust, I was like, what? I was like, what?
Right.
It's so weird.
That's kind of the point of it. It's like the gods, whatever, are so useless. They only care about themselves. They only care about protecting themselves and hiding, because none of them want to die. None of them want to like take the shot. Because like, and that's why Jane's moment is so huge, because she is able to beat it with kind of ease, right? Like she does overpower Gore and destroy the Necrosword, but then she dies because of it, right? So it's like that's the great themes, and then it's like just dumb jokes everywhere. I don't know, man. I again, like the jokes in this movie really were too much. Like this is my biggest concern. They were way over the top with the jokes.
Yeah, Omnipotent City it was a nice touch. It was fun for a bit, and then the whole situation of like, oh, we're not going to go, I felt like was a huge cop out of the movie itself, because we're basically told like, no, you can't have an army and you can't have other gods fighting with you, because we don't want to put that in the story.
Yeah.
We don't want to add another 30 minutes to the plot and make ourselves lose, and then we can't add other things to the movie, or like to the universe itself, signifying, with Hercules, that would have been fun to see, like this whole fight scene between like Hercules and Gore, and Hercules is like, I can't do it, and it's like, well then fine, then I'll go do it myself. And then Hercules feels kind of like demeaned to the point where he's like, well, I'm gonna fight Thor now. But it feels so forced, seeing that Hercules is like, I'm gonna send for Zeus is like, I'm gonna send Hercules out. Okay, we already know that Hercules is a long time not arch enemy, but rival of Thor, and that's fun. That's going to be fun. I like that post credits, but other than that, like it just really sucked not seeing Gore enough. I know Christian Bale commands a lot of presence when he's on the scene, but that's the point. That's the point. That's what you want with a villain. You want the villain to command presence as if he were truly evil.
Yeah.
And then you have the heroes fighting and showing their presence in order to make it so that, okay, so the heroes will prevail. It's a tough one, but the heroes will prevail. And they did show that at the very end, but other than that, it just felt lackluster. I would say my favorite scene throughout the entire movie was between Gore and Gore, Mighty Thor, Thor, and King Valkyrie, and that whole situation of him holding them hostage, telling them like everything that they don't want to hear, almost like trying to influence them.
Yeah, yeah,
Bring them to the dark side, and I love that.
yeah. Call the axe.
Hmm.
Call the axe. That was
Oh,
dope.
he was so good, bro. Like we definitely needed way more Christian Bale in this movie.
We were robbed.
I know, yeah, and there is a lot of footage on the editing room floor, like Natalie Portman said, and Christian Bale had said, and maybe that made it for a better movie. Maybe those scenes like actually sucked in reality, and like when they filled them and the scenes didn't work, so they were like, oh, we can't put this in. This fucking sucks.
Yeah.
But we needed more gore, and we needed more Valkyrie. Like what was the Valkyrie's point of being in this movie at all?
Mm-hmm.
Like she did nothing. She stabbed Gore a little bit, got stabbed herself, and then like fucked off back to Asgard for the rest of the movie. Like, what was she doing in this movie?
Yeah.
And Tessa Thompson was fantastic, and like her scene with like Korg and stuff, like she is really great. And I don't understand why she was so underutilized. When do you remember like 3 or 4 years ago when they started promoting this stuff? Like, yeah, this movie's gonna be, kind of a King Valkyrie journey too, where she finds her queen and finds herself, and like none of that made it. None of that made it to the end script.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. Like, it seems like there's a lot missing from the film. I think Christian Bale had an opportunity which was probably taken from him because he feels like the way I think of it is he feels that he did give the best performance that he could, but I don't think he likes the finished product from what he's saying. He's like, for him to actually say, look, I shot a lot of really amazing scenes that didn't make it into the movie, that kind of tells you that he doesn't really like the performance. And I think that he could have been one of the best Marvel villains that we've ever had if they gave him all those scenes or somehow made it work or edited the movie better or rewrote stuff. Like I heard he was in for reshoots towards the end. So I'd love to know what reshoots made it into the film. Like I think a lot of people were speculating the scene where he's in the cage with the kids was kind of shot post like production or whatever. Yeah, I don't know, bro. Like it's tough. Like it's really tough. Like I wasn't a big fan of Zeus either. I thought he was just like too out there, too outrageous. Like like he's coming down the stairs with his holding his skirt up and stuff and doing twirls and all. I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous, dude.
I mean, technically speaking, though, like Zeus is that kind of person. Like all he wanted to do was have orgies and not give a shit about humans.
Yeah.
Like it was just his thing. The gods are worshipped and they don't really, give them anything back. And that was the whole theme for the movie itself, was like the gods can't love. And so you see at the very end that they, of course, Thor can love someone else.
When that
bold. And that was, yeah, it's bold. And I mean, it's easy when it's your own daughter and she's just playing some other character. You're like, okay, I could love this.
Yeah.
She kind of looks like me.
Yeah. I thought she was actually fantastic as well. The little actress who is actually Chris Hemsworth's daughter. I was like, the way she was like used, like the stares that she was giving him and how she was like moving her mouth and everything. I was like, she actually looks like a little Christian Bale. I'm like, the way that she's actually acting, like I believe that she's Christian Bale's daughter. I'm like, this is crazy. And then I find out that it's like, oh my God, that's actually Chris Hemsworth's daughter. I'm like, holy shit, crazy. What did you guys think of the Guardians? I thought the Guardians were very underutilized in the film. Very underutilized. Like,
they definitely were, but like I wasn't going into the film thinking that they were going to be utilized at all. Like I remember thinking to myself, I think we even talked about on the podcast. I was like, oh dude, they're going to be in it for like less than 10 minutes at most. And like, they're going to get back off, which is not that fun. Like it's always great to see the Guardians. Like that's such a great cast. I want to see more of them all the time.
Yeah.
But I also love the way that Taika used them. Like they were just tired of Thor's shit. Like all of them were just so incredibly over Thor. I liked their performances, but I also don't know what else they could have done that wouldn't have taken away from this entirety of the other cast, because they had a lot of other people in the film.
It seemed like as well, like Quill was the only one to kind of say goodbye to him, and I thought he, like from what we've seen so far with Infinity War and everything like that, like he has like a really good relationship with the likes of Rocket and Groot and everything, and just like, we didn't get to see any of that. And I think even just extending like emotional like scenes with them would have made it a lot more impactful rather than him and Quill just having a bit of back and forth, and then they just shoot off. Like it felt really weird to me. Like I think Drax said 2 words, must have been the easiest paycheck in Batista's life. You know what I mean? He did nothing. You know, Vin Diesel, what did he do? Like again, I know he never does anything really, but like nothing. Bradley Cooper, like all these like top guys are getting paid for this appearance, but they did nothing. I was really kind of shocked by it. Like, I understand what you're saying about them just being in it for 10 minutes, but I feel like the 10 minutes that they were in were just...
Could have been impactful.
Yeah, it was just a waste. I felt like a waste. It felt like a waste of appearance.
That was one of the biggest things that I thought was, like, really missing in this movie was organic, like, plot. Nothing was organic in this plot at all. You guys remember the scene when Jane Foster is, like, barely introducing the fact that she has cancer, and then Darcy shows up? Like, wouldn't it have been more, you know, fluid and organic if it was like, hey, come on, cheer up. I heard that they got some new attractions over in New Asgard and whatnot. And just have her go and to enjoy some of the things that are in New Asgard, show the funny stuff there, have her kind of walk up to the hammer and then have it resonate instead of it calling her while she's trying to do research and then just immediately forcing her to go like beeline it all the way to Mjolnir. Yeah. It didn't feel comfortable. Like it felt like, okay, you guys had no idea how to get her there, and you just were like, let's put a book nearby and have it talk to her or something.
Yeah,
you know, it just didn't make sense.
It was a bit outrageous that Mjolnir like called out to her from across the country or whatever. Like I don't know where they are, or from across the world or whatever. Like, you know, it felt very, very strange. You know, and I see what they were doing with it, and then I actually really liked the bits where they kind of went back and filled in the relationship stuff. Because, you know, the way we kind of just hear that the relationship's over by, like, the time, I think it's Infinity War comes around, or Ragnarok, and you're just kind of like, oh, they broke up. Oh, why? How? What happened? Like, you know, and then I thought it was kind of nice that you saw that they lived together, and they were both kind of trying to be professional, live their lives, and he's shooting off to fight stuff with the Avengers and going off-world, and then she's just working on her book and all this stuff. Like, I thought that was really cool, but then it just kind of... again, just leapfrogged forward, like, and then she's Thor, like, right, like, you know, 5 minutes later, she's Thor. I was like, we didn't see any kind of transition. We didn't see the hammer reassemble. We didn't see her pick it up for the first time. Like, how did we not see her pick it up for the first time? Like, do you know what I mean? That's such a key thing with Mjolnir, that, like, you pick it up, you're worthy, you know, and that was all gone. And, like, when we saw, like, because I was, like, watching the movie, and, like, I'm like, oh my god, Thor's showing up on New Asgard and we're having this fight with Gore, and I'm like, I know this from the trailers. This is the part where he first sees her, and I didn't think that would be the first time that we saw her as the audience.
Right. It felt weird because you start to see it come together, and then they like just cut away. And I think what they were trying to do is mimic the Mighty Thor comic books, because you don't necessarily, you see it being picked up, but you don't really know it's her at first. And I feel like they were trying to like copy that, but like it doesn't really matter because like we know she's going to be Thor. Like, you know, they don't show her head. And they don't show her picking it up. Like, oh, what? It's supposed to be a surprise that Jane Foster is the one?
We haven't seen all the trailers.
They showed it in the trailers. What was
so I think they should have just done it. But yeah, I'm with you on that. That was a really weird moment. You know, Asgard as a whole was kind of weird, you know? A lot of memes going on right now about like the infinity cones, the gauntlet, the ice cream store.
Yeah, that was
like,
kind of fun, though.
I thought that was kind of fun too.
It is fun, but it's like, hey, new Asgardians, you know the guy who like killed half of the remaining. Yeah. Hey, have a cone, you fucks.
And can we just address the elephant in the room? Nice job, Taika Waititi, recycling a joke that you had in like the other Thor movie. What was it? The Dark World. With the play, like you couldn't try something different. Like that. Like
I knew that was
funny.
I knew that was coming a long time ago. I heard what's her name, McCarthy. Is it Jessica McCarthy or whatever her name is? I don't know what the actress's name is who played Hela. I knew she
Melissa McCarthy.
Melissa, yeah, I knew she was coming like from a long time ago, and like I loved having Matt Damon back, and Luke Hemsworth actually plays Thor, which is just ridiculous, you know. So I like having them back, but yeah, it is just kind of a rehash, and it's a little too soon or whatever. Yeah.
Right. But I think Katie and I even talked about this. Like, here's how you fix that joke, though. You don't do a rehashing of the play. You have that moment where they're having counsel in like the town hall. Yeah. And then you see Matt Damon
making
and
up
Luke
the ideas
Hemsworth.
for the next play.
Yes. They're like, what can we work on? Because then that brings out the thing like, oh, okay, so they still live there.
Yeah, they're
and
going
that
to do
would have been funnier
play.
than Yes.
For
Yeah.
sure, for sure, for sure. Guys, just before we wrap up the video, we have to talk about Hercules. What do we think of the casting of Hercules?
I love it, man. I know, some people have problems with it because he's not like this huge dude, right?
Yeah,
But I think he's a comedian who is casted the role. He's the soccer player from Ted Lasso, but he's also a comedian. Like he's a writer comedian, and that's like right up Taika Waititi's alley. Writer comedian. No, he knows rage, like he knows timing and like presence in that. So I think from an acting standpoint, like he's just a fantastic casting for the role Hercules. He's going to be able to get like really angry and really stern on film without feeling over the top,
yeah,
which
Yeah.
I think is needed to nail Hercules. He is a little small, like he's pretty cut, but like I think he's got a couple of years before they, film anything.
yeah,
So he could probably just has time just to like bulk up.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
I love him in Ted Lasso, and I only know him from Ted Lasso. And when I saw his face, I was like, "Is that the dude from Ted Lasso?" I was like, "It can't be, is it?" I was like, "Is it?" I was like, "Yeah, I think it is." But like in my head, I'm like, "That dude looks like he's like 5'8" and he's just like a kind of like scrawny football player." I'm like, "How's this dude Hercules?" I was expecting to see someone like Henry Cavill or something showing up, which would have been blew my mind. I didn't even get a look at his body because I was so focused on the face, and I was like, "Oh my god, if I see Henry Cavill right now, I'm gonna lose my mind," So I was kind of like, "Yeah, look, I could see it." What you're saying about the whole comedy thing, though, that kind of scares me in a way because I'm like, I don't want a comedian to play this role. I want this to be serious. I want Thor to go back to being a serious character. And like, I really, really hope that Taika doesn't have anything to do with Thor going forward. Not shitting on anything that he's done, but I've had enough of it now. Like it's done. Let's move on.
I'm so
Yeah, let's
tired of
get
you
serious.
people who want this story to be serious, okay? We told you a Dark World was fucking fantastic, and nobody listened to us. We were like, dude, this is fucking great. And the entire MCU fan base was like, a Dark World is shit, bro. They almost killed the MCU with this movie. Oh, now everyone wants like serious Thor back. I don't get it. Like, it
But
was
like,
fucking great.
what I love about Thor and like where you get him in like Avengers Ultron and he is a serious character, but he does have that funny side. Like he is very funny in Ultron. He's very funny in Infinity War, but it's like it's not like gag stuff. Like
Right.
he's witty, but he's serious and he gets his shit done. But like now it's ridiculous. Like I want it to kind of go back to Age of Ultron Thor, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense because when you think about it, that Thor, like it's like you guys said, Thor's not really a dummy. It's just like he's from another world and he's like very old. So I mean, there are a lot of different customs. It's much like Drax. Like there's customs that they're not known to work with. So it's different. It's gonna feel different. They have to work. They have to work around it. So I think that going back to a more serious kind of Thor is fine. I think that like pulling back on the jokes is fine. I don't think you should completely squash it out. It's always nice to have a little bit of
Yeah.
jokes here and there. But when we see this combat between Hercules and Thor, I want it to be an actual rivalry and not so much of a joking situation of like, who are you? Like, it's gonna get really weird.
I fear that that's
if they
what's
try to make jokes.
I fear that's what's going to happen if Taika stays involved. The two of them it'll be like, college bros just like having a friendly scrap, whereas, it needs to be epic. It needs to be the two of them head to head. And then maybe if they become friends after, because I know in the comics they're, enemies, then they're friends, then they're enemies. And then, over so long of a period that they're kind of friends now in our time because it's just like, they've had the back and forth for so long. So like, I'd like to see that side of it, but I want to see this like, Batman versus Superman. Like, it's got to be an epic big battle at the very beginning. And then if they want to go fun with it, let them do that. But I think if Taika's involved, it's just going to be slapstick comedy the whole time. And I'm just like, no, please don't.
Right.
I
It's
mean,
good.
Ragnarok was good.
Ragnarok was fantastic. It
That
was.
was Taika.
It
He
was.
might dial it back. He might see he went a little too far.
Well, this
Because
movie
it's because
is
of-
evidence that he went even further. He didn't dial it back.
Right.
No, I mean,
It's
from
because
now,
of
like,
flip-flops.
yeah, maybe he knows now. He's like, okay, maybe that's a little too far.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I think as a director, I think his instincts as a director for the themes of the movie and what he's trying to tell are great. I just think he missed the mark on what he was trying to do in this one.
Do you think
Well,
that
I
Marvel
think-
knew that? Do you think Marvel knew that it was going to be what it is, and they didn't kind of go full send on the kind of hype for the film and the marketing and as much as they had for other movies. I kind of feel like they kind of knew what was going to happen, so they're kind of like, let's make this movie as short as possible. We'll get the shortest cut that we can. We'll let the movie happen. Some people will have fun. Some people won't like it, but it's like, let's just sweep it under the rug then, and let's just move on to the next thing. It is what it is. This is the best version of the movie that we can get. If you like it, fantastic. If you don't, it's a comedy. Let's move on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just weird though, because like, would you really want to make an experiment out of like Thor? Thor's been doing pretty well on its own. Like, you don't want to experiment on like one of the big guys. You want to experiment on one of the smaller things. Like when they did Moon Knight, they had so many twists and turns with that. They had jokes, and it worked. Like, I don't think it faltered at any point. I think it had a great sequence throughout the entire time, and so that's how you get the feel of it. But if you do Thor, it's like, if you flop, people will shout out like, that sucked.
Yeah. And I feel like the marketing, like, it matched it. This movie's made $300 million over the opening weekend, and that beats every other Thor movie's opening weekend. Like, this is bigger than Ragnarok. It's not bigger than Multiverse of Madness, but I also think that thing was riding the hype of like, hey, Professor X in this one could be Reed Richards. Like, you don't know what's going to happen in this thing. It's going to be nuts.
Yeah.
And so I think that even though the numbers aren't beating like Multiverse of Madness, it's still the best Thor opening. Thor has he's never been the headliner of the MCU. It's always been Iron Man and Captain America, and then Thor was kind of just out there. And I think the marketing kind of reflects that, and I don't know. I think the box office came in pretty good for it.
Do you know, critically, this is like the fourth lowest movie, like audience score, compared to like critical score. I think there's like whatever that stat is, it's like the fourth worst movie in the MCU. So like, people are not liking it.
Yeah.
Do you think the movie could have done with a two-parter? Because I feel like the MCU is so afraid of doing a two-part series for like a movie simply because like they feel like there's not enough plot. Like, I had already thought that there should be a two-parter for it where Thor is still kind of fat Thor, he fails, and then the second movie is where he kind of like bulks up and realizes that he has to get stronger, and then like goes up against Gore again. Like, that fall in and rise again. I think that would have been fun.
I think it's outrageous that they killed Gore in this movie. Like, he was so good. Like, you're getting Christian Bale into the MCU, and it's like, in the less than 2 hours, he's gone. That's it. Bye, Christian. It was nice to see you, dude. Like, see you later. You're dead.
Right.
Like, I thought that was wild.
But one of the biggest things about, Gore is that he has come back before. So they can always write it back in that he comes back through the Necrosword.
Great. Please do. Please bring him back. Yeah.
He's good. He's all right. I thought he was a little goofy at times. I thought he had some really great moments, but this is not the comic book Gore. Like, comic book Gore is way better. Way better.
Yeah.
Is he more serious? I can't remember.
Way more serious. Way more terrifying. And he's been around way longer. Like, he fought Thor when Thor was a young teenager, and he then fights Thor when he's an older, and that's like when the main storyline takes place.
Yeah.
Also, as a quick tidbit, the reason why it's just called the Necrosword is because Sony still owns the rights to the Venom, like the symbiotes.
Yeah, of
so
course.
they can't call it All Black.
Yeah,
because that's a reference to Null.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. Guys, that's it for the video. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel, hit like on the video. Let us know in the comments what you think of the film. Did you like it? Did you not? What you think of the video? And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Later, everyone.